Testing, testing, testing. Hello, this is Liz, Derry Public Library's resident movie expert and one of the reference librarians. Hopefully, you're having a nice Tuesday. It is beautiful out, and as usual, I'm saying the day of the week so we all remember what day it is. I'm actually joined here today with a little furry friend. This is Watanuki, just sitting on my lap while he's getting scritched. They've actually been enjoying that we've been home a lot more. It means more scritching time and more pets, and a little bit more aggravation on our end. So today I'm going to answer the question a lot of people are having right now, which is, what should I watch on Netflix? So I've got some drama, some comedy, and two movies that I absolutely love and love recommending to people. The first, we're going to go with drama. Oh, by Watanuki. Got a lot of leap on though for a little small cat. First is going to be Perks of Being a Wallflower. If this movie title sounds familiar, that's because it's based on a book by Stephen Chbosky. It's a very popular teen title. And I actually was not a huge fan of the book when I read it, but I actually think that the movie kind of dulls down the parts of the book. I probably didn't like the writing style. It dulls down the parts that I found a little bit more insufferable. And actually, I'm like, oh, I like this story a lot more than I remember. So it's a case of, hey, sometimes an adaptation can be just as good or even improve the book. The next one is going to be The Master. This is directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. You probably know him from directing stuff like Punch Drunk Love, Inherent Vice. He directed Phantom Thread a few years ago. This movie was famous not only for being Philip Seymour Hoffman, one of his last big roles, but it was a highly controversial film because it is based, I wouldn't even say loosely, very closely to the life of L. Ron Hubbard in the creation of Scientology. So I think when this movie came out, there were a lot of us who were like, oh Lord, protect Paul Thomas Anderson and his wife, Maya Rudolph, which, yeah, fun fact, he and Maya Rudolph have like 5 kids together. But, he's still alive. The movie came out, and I think it's a fantastic drama. Like all Paul Thomas Anderson movies, though, it may be repellent to some. Joaquin Phoenix is the main character, and he's certainly not a great, great person. But you're watching him, Amy Adams, and Philip Seymour Hoffman act and interact together, and that alone is electrifying. So, I mean, if you want to see Joaquin Phoenix kind of like he was in Joker, you can watch this movie. I know that I view his win for Joker as payback for not being nominated for The Master. So we're going to go to something a little bit lighter, and this was definitely a classic for me when I was younger, and that's My Girl. Probably know it as the movie with Macaulay Culkin and the Bees, but I actually think it's a very heartwarming story about a girl coming of age, kind of figuring out who she is and coming to terms with a lot of tragedies in her life. The main character, played by Anna Chlumsky, is someone whose life has been marked by death. Her father runs a funeral home. Her mother died when she was very young, and, spoiler alert, she does have to deal with another death of someone very close to her. So it's her trying to cope with that. And I still think it's a very touching young movie. It's someone that both teens and, even for the under 10 crowd can enjoy, and adults can enjoy as well. Also, fun fact, Anna Chlumsky, who plays the main character, she went on to be on the profane HBO show Veep. So I know when I started watching Veep, it was kind of hard to see the girl from My Girl dropping multiple F-bombs. After a while, it became just hilarious. Next is going to be a stand-up special, which got a lot of praise and attention about 2 years ago, which is Hannah Gadsby's Nanette. So it's interesting to call this a stand-up special. I mean, I guess it is technically. It's really more of just a long spoken word piece. I'd actually compare it a lot to Spalding Gray's old spoken word performances. So the first is funny. It's her talking about herself, but she talks about larger things, which is how men are viewed in art, how women are viewed in art, and then she gets extremely personal. It really is, in the second half, it is a hard thing to watch, but it's also beautiful because you are watching someone kind of bare her soul. It's a very honest spoken word performance, and I would definitely recommend watching it. For a drama that's not extremely heavy, I would recommend The Two Popes that came out this past year. It stars Anthony Hopkins as Pope Benedict and Jonathan Pryce as the current Pope, Pope Francis. These are actually two of my favorite actors. So it's great just to, again, watch them kind of play off each other. I love Jonathan Pryce. I really don't think he gets the attention and praise that he deserves. So anytime I can watch him, I'm very happy about that. So for drama, I'm now going to go for the more sort of sci-fi plague angle. I know everyone's groaning at that, but the first is, hey, Outbreak is on Netflix. If you ever want to think about it, could be worse. I mean, we could be dealing with an Ebola outbreak. And although actually, as this does show, Ebola itself, a little bit harder to transmit than a respiratory virus, but you know, it's mid-90s. It's kind of silly in retrospect, but it still holds up as a movie. I think it's still a fun watch. And another is sort of a hidden sci-fi gem called The Girl with All the Gifts. And this is based on a book that came out a few years ago. So these are essentially zombie children. They act like quote unquote normal kids, but they still have the zombie gene in them. And it's a very interesting movie to kind of see, like, what would the second generation of kids who survived a plague be like? And I think it's a very interesting film. Glenn Close is in it, whom I love watching. And again, hey, if you're stuck in the house and bored, it could always be worse. Just watch that movie and go, pretty good. I can at least go outside. This is great. So on to comedy, which is, we're going to start with a sci-fi comedy, which is about not quite being stuck indoors, but stuck in one place. It's Tremors. If you're familiar with this movie, this is the giant worms underground in the Southwest. It's got Kevin Bacon and just his head of flouncy bouncy hair. It's fun. I think the effects are still fantastic. I am a sucker for practical effects. Also, Reba McEntire's in it as like a survivalist prepper lady who ends up killing one or two of these big worms. It's silly, but it's fun. And in the sort of silly but fun angle, we're going to go with Ant-Man and the Wasp. So yes, Disney Plus has a lot of the Marvel stuff on it, but I don't know, I guess due to waiting for the rights to run out, Netflix still has a few of the Marvel movies on there. And Ant-Man and the Wasp is really fun. It is all of the kind of fun action of a superhero movie without the world-ending threat. It's a very localized threat. It's like, oh no, someone wants technology for nefarious purposes, not Thanos is trying to wipe out half of the population. Although Infinity War does play into it at the end. My mother, who, fun fact, the first superhero movie she ever saw was Infinity War. That was fun. She actually called me like an hour before she took my brother, like, what do I need to know? I'm like, I can't help you an hour before this. You should call me last night. Anywho, a few months later, she took my brother to see Ant-Man and the Wasp, and she was utterly charmed by it. And she goes, this is much better than that Infinity War movie. So even if you're not a big fan of a lot of the MCU movies, you might like Ant-Man and the Wasp. And so from that, we're going to go with another sort of animal mantra, which is Ali Wong's Baby Cobra. It's a stand-up special. We actually have Ali Wong's book at the library, so when we eventually open up again, you can read it. It's called Dear Girls. This is her first big stand-up special that got her fame, and she's extremely pregnant, and she's also extremely funny. I think she's a riot, so I would definitely recommend watching that. So my two picks of the day, the first is The Florida Project. I've recommended this before because it's on Prime, but I saw that it came to Netflix, and I want to recommend you guys watch it as well. I think it's a great movie. It's very slice of life, sort of, it's in the vein of a lot of, I would say almost like French films, where they're not incredibly structured. You're just watching the day-to-day life of these characters. And it's through the eyes of these kids. They live at an extended stay motel, and this is where people who really can't even scrape together enough money for a down payment for an apartment live. It doesn't moralize poverty. It doesn't make these people into the noble poor. These are just people who are trying to make the best life they can. And they're not gross. They're not scumbags. They're not bad people. They just are people who either by birth or circumstance or in a rough spot in life. And this movie has an incredible humanity to it because it's willing to just look at these people as people. Also, take into account that the fact that Director Sean Baker, a lot of the people he cast as side characters in this film, they're people who actually live in this situation. So I think it's not only a great American film, it shines a light on a group of people that aren't often represented in American cinema. And of course, the main character is a 6-year-old girl, Brooklyn Prince. She is fantastic. Her performance, I would compare to Quvenzhané Wallis's in Beast of the Southern Wild in terms of a young actor. And Willem Dafoe is in this as well as the manager, and I don't think he's ever been better. This actually might be my favorite Willem Dafoe performance, so highly recommend watching this. The other one I'm going to recommend is a 90s comedy starring Patrick Swayze, Wesley Snipes, John Leguizamo in drag. It's To Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar. This movie is wonderful. It has so much heart. It's funny as heck. It's endlessly quotable. It's a little bit dated. I mean, it was made in the 90s, but I think the overall story and lesson is very sweet. It's 3 drag queens. They're going on a road trip to go to a competition. Their car breaks down in the middle of the Midwest. And we as the viewer think, oh no, they're going to face a lot of discrimination. And they do from a few people, but ultimately the people of the town love these new visitors and they accept them for who they are. And they're just like, this is the most, fun we've had in a while. It's a really nice testament to the power of just friendship and love and just accepting other people. And I think that is a lesson that is timeless and, also goes without saying, Leguizamo, Snipes, and Patrick Swayze, they are all fantastic in this movie, and they don't even seem uncomfortable in their drag getup. They seem very like, no, this is fine. So if you've never seen this movie, you've probably seen it referenced. If you've never seen it the whole way through, watch it and be prepared to laugh. So hope you watch one of these movies. Have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow with What's on Prime.